to thank everyone who's joining us. This is going to be our first attempt at a virtual meeting like this. Some of you know the Shenandoah Valley, but for those of you who do not, for our consultant community here, we are in the northwestern part of Virginia, bracketed by the Blue Ridge Mountains on the eastern border and the Alleghenies on the west. The northern part of our region is essentially bordered by Interstate 66, which goes straight to Northern Virginia and DC. And then along the south, Interstate 64 going east to the Hampton Roads, ports of Virginia, and west over into the Ohio Valley. And although the valley is known for its food and beverage production, we do have 4 of the top 5 ag producing localities in Virginia, in the area. We wanted to present the topic that allows the food and beverage and the ag to be so successful. And we thought, what better way than to talk about the supply chain during this pandemic than to have the perspective of a toilet tissue manufacturer, a food and beverage 3PL, you know, our ports and our airports, to talk about the full breadth of the transportation infrastructure in the valley. So, but before we begin, it's like, please, I know everyone now knows the chat feature on this. If you have questions during this, you can type it in to the chat feature. Travis Carter, our business development manager for the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, is monitoring this. If it's topical, he'll throw it out. And we're certainly going to provide plenty of time at the end of this for Q&A as well. So I'd like to begin with the introductions. We'll start with Mercury Paper, then InterChange, and the ports, and then the airport. And Charlene, if you would please kick it off, I'd let you do the introductions for Mercury.
Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate the opportunity to join today's roundtable and discussion. I'm Charlene Hummel-Baxley. I'm the Senior HR Manager for Mercury Paper in Virginia and our sister company, American Tissue Industries, in Oklahoma. And I've been with Mercury since 2017, and it has been very good, very, very good. We have a great team. And my colleague, Tara Rutherford, is joining us today as well from Mercury.
Hi, everyone. As Charlene said, I'm Tara Rutherford. I handle the transportation and imports for both Mercury and Solaris on the West Coast. I've been with the company for about 10 years now, and I've really enjoyed my time.
Chris and Keith, I'll allow you.
I'm Chris Thompson. I'm the VP of Business Development for InterChange Group. As Jay mentioned, we're a third-party logistics operator here in this region, focused primarily on the food and beverage industry. We've been in business now, I think we're going on 27 years. I've been a part of the company now for the last 17 or 18 years. We have Keith Robinson. I'll let him introduce himself. And we actually have Devin Andrews with us as well, our president. So, guys.
Well, hi guys, I'm Keith Robinson, sales manager for the InterChange Group. And as Chris said, in addition to warehousing and third-party logistics, we are also involved in industrial real estate development, at least here in the Shenandoah Valley. And we certainly appreciate being part of the roundtable discussion today. So thank you all for being here and allowing us to join.
I'm Devin Andrews, as Chris said, president, one of the founders of InterChange. And yeah, we're heavy in food and beverage, and the Valley is heavy in food and beverage. So we like that, and it's a good space to be in. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, guys. Laura, I'll turn it over to you first, and then Russ.
All right, thanks, Jay. I'm Laura Smith. I'm one of the economic development managers at the Port of Virginia, and I happen to cover the Shenandoah Valley as one of my territories. The Port of Virginia has 6 terminals across the state, and Carrie, if you want to show that slide real quick, we'll show you where all of those terminals are. One of them happens to be in the northern part of the Shenandoah Valley. It's called the Virginia Inland Terminal. And there you see it about 60 miles west of DC. And then our other terminals, we have 4 in what's called Hampton Roads. Those are our deep water terminals. And then also another inland terminal, the Richmond Marine Terminal. So I'll turn it over to Russ now, and then we'll talk about these facilities a little bit later in the conversation.
Thanks, Laura. My name is Russell Held. I'm Vice President of Economic Development with the Port of Virginia. And what we do with the Port Economic Development Team is try to work with state, regional, and local economic development organizations to use the port as an economic engine. And there isn't a better example than the Shenandoah Valley Partnership. Just on the call here with our customers and partners and friends, I'm so thankful that Jay and Carrie invited us, and look forward to speaking with you all during this hour.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you, Laura. And finally, Greg Campbell with the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport.
Good afternoon. I am Greg Campbell with the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport Commission. The Airport Commission is a multi-jurisdictional local government agency that is charged with operating the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport. We're one of 7 downstate commercial service airports in Virginia. We're located, Carrie, can we have the green map back up? The airport's been strategically located in the center of the partnership's footprint to serve all the 3 cities and multiple counties contained in the partnership's footprint. You can see there we're located just off of Interstate 81 between Harrisonburg and Stanton. This puts us within about 30, 40 minutes of most of the population in the business and industry in the central Shenandoah Valley. The airport has outstanding capabilities and infrastructure. We have a award-winning FBO and corporate services division that's operated by the Airport Commission, the Airport Authority. But we also offer on the commercial side United Airlines service to 2 of United's hubs, Chicago O'Hare and Washington Dulles. It's daily jet service operated by United and their partner SkyWest, and we'll talk a little more about that later, hopefully.
Thank you, Greg. So you want to hear our companies, and so to set the stage with this, I'll kick it off with Mercury Paper. Mercury Paper announced their manufacturing location in 2008. And they have been in operations a little more than the 10 years here. During that time, the company has now both announced the headquarters and a recent expansion, and as late as 2018. Charlene and Tara, can you provide a description of your operations and why you're able to provide toilet tissue everywhere to the country? And then InterChange and the others, y'all, please feel free to join in and talk about this. So I'll turn it over to you, Charlene.
Little context around Mercury Paper. We are a company that is a part of a much larger global company, but our presence is very much Virginia-based and focused. And we're a tissue converting company. So that means that the tissue paper is produced somewhere else and then brought in, which Tara is key in making happen. And then we convert it into finished products in our facility in Strasburg, which is pictured behind me. And so we make tissue products, which include bath tissue, paper towels, napkins, facial tissue, and various qualities and brands. We have our own brands, and we also make product for brands that you would recognize in the store. So we have about 250 employees between the Strasburg converting plant and offices and our 2 distribution centers in Winchester, which is where Tara works out of, and I work out of the facility in Strasbourg. And so there's a little context there for you. I think some of the people on today's call have been on tours at our facility. We are very proud of it. We have 7 production lines. We started out with 3, and then we had an expansion a few years later to 5 lines. And then, as Jay mentioned, in 2018, we expanded with 2 additional lines, and we have a total of 7 lines. If you have the opportunity to tour our facility, I encourage you to do so. Sometimes when people mention manufacturing, scenes from Norma Ray come to mind, and that is not our manufacturing. We are a very high-tech, semi-food grade operation, which means it's very clean and very computerized, very high-tech. If everything runs properly, human hands never touch the product. It is all automated. And we're very proud of that operation, and we try hard to do a very good job. And we've set a lot of records within our company in the last few years, which is very satisfying. So our location was chosen strategically, which I think a lot of us recognize the value of the Shenandoah Valley, or the Big Valley, as I know it's sometimes called. And it has served us well, both logistically and also in terms of human resources. I came from the Tampa Bay area in Florida until about 5 years ago. My husband and I moved to Virginia, so I have context of having been an HR manager in several states and then based out of Tampa for most of my career, and I can speak very clearly on the advantages of the workforce in the Shenandoah Valley. And then, of course, having responsibility for our sister company in Oklahoma, there are very clear contrasts. So we have a lot going on for us in this valley, and it was a wise choice in my opinion. So, Tara, you're the expert on the logistics piece and transportation.
Yeah, so basically with us being strategically placed here in the Shenandoah Valley, it allows us access to all the major interstates. We can be right on 81 within just a few minutes from all 3 of our facilities that we ship from, which allows us to have direct access to our customers and minimize our shipping time, which has been excellent. We are also only 11 miles from the Virginia Inland Port, which allows us direct access to our containers. We utilize the inland port to bring in finished goods, and we also utilize the inland port to bring in our base paper, which we use at our converting facility. With being so close to the port, a lot of times we can have access to our containers same day. As soon as they arrive to the Virginia Inland Port, we can grab them, pull them over to our facility, and get them emptied in just a few minutes. It takes roughly around about 30 minutes to unload a container of base paper, and then we can have that driver turned around and right back to the port so that they're able to maximize the number of loads that they're able to get a day. And it's just been a great asset for us to be so close to the inland port and the interstates to service our customers.
A great description of the transportation assets, and a perfect segue for Laura and Russ to explain further about the inland port and its reach and the integration with your ports in Hampton Roads. We'll let you explain that more.
Absolutely. So y'all all made great points, and I think that's one of the main reasons we love the Shenandoah Valley, and we love to bring prospects out there, because you can see all of those transportation networks work together. You have the roads, you have the rail, and the airport, and it allows prospects to reach their customers very efficiently and quickly. And so Tara mentioned the Virginia Inland Port, and that is an inland facility, so there's no water at that facility. It's a rail-served site. So every day from Hampton Roads, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, a train leaves Norfolk and goes to Front Royal, Virginia, via Norfolk Southern. The train will offload there. We have 5 rail tracks, and we actually just got a build grant to expand that terminal from 5 tracks to 8 tracks. So that's happening now. We're in the planning process for that. So you'll see an expansion there take place pretty soon. But that facility, it works like a ballet, we say. It's very smooth. It's kind of a little niche port. So customers can come in. They have direct access to all of the employees at that terminal. So if there is ever any issue with your cargo, you can just call the terminal up and they can go see where your box is on the facility. So it's a pretty good little terminal there that we have, but the capacity is pretty great. So the capacity at that facility is about 80,000 TEUs. A TEU is a 20-foot equivalent unit, so the smaller container that you'll see on the road. So we do have room to grow at that facility. There's also other opportunities at that terminal for things like the ag products that come out of the Shenandoah Valley. So currently now we have Northwest Hardwoods on terminal. They export a lot of logs and lumber, but there's other opportunities for companies like that to come in and lease acreage from us. Another key asset at that terminal is we have the privilege of having InterChange right next to us. So I'll let them talk about that a little bit, and then we can talk about our other terminals, unless, Russ, you want to talk about some of the terminals down in Hampton Roads and how they connect real quick.
I just want to add two thoughts, if I could, make sure I'm on. Okay, add two thoughts if I could. First, I had the honor of being involved with the original recruitment of Mercury Paper probably 15 years ago. And the vision that we had, and certainly Mercury Paper had, could not have been explained better than Tara just explained how it works. And it's as far as using the inland port to make that connection 220 miles inland from the ocean terminals, and then using 81 to distribute your product up into the Northeast, but then down the southern way too. So it's rewarding to hear how well that works when that was the vision before it was ever built. Excuse me 1 second there. That happens every time. I tell you what, that's been an issue. The other thing I want to go into is Laura was talking about the infrastructure going on, the infrastructure expansion at the Virginia Inland Port, and I just want to highlight that as far as the real message we have today and going forward. We've just invested nearly $1 billion in terminal infrastructure expansion that expands our capacity by 1 million containers a year in the Hampton Roads terminal facilities. And then when you add that to the bridges, the highways, the tunnel construction going on, around $8 billion across the state, and then projects that we have to deepen and widen the channel. If you make an investment in the Shenandoah Valley today and are looking for international supply chain access for the next 50 years, we can show you how that's going to happen. So I appreciate those comments. And indeed, InterChange is a partner we've had for many years, and I'd like to turn it over to them.
Well, good. Well, thank you. I guess our story about the Shenandoah Valley is probably a little bit more organic than most. For a lot of you that know Devin and his two partners, this is home for them. So investing in the Valley is probably a much easier decision for them to make. They actually started as a corrugated plant down the Weir's Cave area, and InterChange was born out of necessity. Some of their customers were in a position where they actually needed to have prepared product, and so InterChange was born. Devin at least peeled out of the corrugated business, started the warehousing business, and that has grown in the last 27 years to where we now have, I believe, 24 facilities throughout the state of Virginia, very strategically located up and down the I-81 corridor with great access to 66 on the north end for the metro area. As Laura mentioned, we are right next door to the Virginia Inland Port with an existing hybrid facility which offers frozen and dry, and a Tier 5 site-ready lot across the street that's able to be developed at the drop of a dime. Moving south, we have our home base in the Harrisonburg, Mount Crawford area, which is wonderful access to 81 and 64, which is a huge hub. And then as we travel further east, we are also positioned in Portsmouth now with a 200,000 square foot dry facility, and we are about 15 minutes away from the marine terminals in Portsmouth, which is great access for hauling containers back and forth. But we do have, in addition to our warehousing side, we have the transportation component of our business. So we have about 50 trucks that are on the road. We are in and out of the Port of Virginia daily, with about 12 of those operators being permanently positioned in the Hampton Roads area, and the balance of our drivers are stationed here in Harrisonburg and Winchester. But the Shenandoah Valley is an amazing place it's an amazing place to live. The businesses around us that have grown and prospered from what the Valley has to offer have given us that same opportunity for our business to grow. As Chris mentioned earlier, the attitude of our three owners is that they are very entrepreneurial and flexible, and we continue to see opportunities where other folks need assistance, and we have catered much of our growth strategy into being able to facilitate some of those needs. And it's everything from the type of storage that we offer, whether it's frozen, refrigerated, or even heated for some of our customers. But those unique little sectors of the business have given us interesting growth opportunities. And our access to the inland port and the marine terminals in Norfolk, of course, there's no ceiling on the limit of our potential growth in that respect. But again, going back to the Shenandoah Valley, Devin and his partners have a very philanthropic approach and like to give back, and this is a great community to give back to. One of the things that we believe makes this community so successful is the collaboration, the genuine and true collaboration that we see amongst all the universities, with workforce development, with job training, with education, and just our ability to work with other local manufacturers and realize those needs. And it's wonderful to work in a region where people openly discuss their needs and allow us the opportunity to sometimes fill those gaps or give us creative ideas on ways that we can help them and help ourselves. And in addition to that, the transportation side of our business being located with 81, 66, and 64, that gives us great interstate access for our transportation team. But as many of you know, we have customers from all over the world, and to get out to see them and for them to come and visit us in their manufacturing sectors, having the Shenandoah Valley Regional Airport right in our backyard gives us the capability within 15 minutes, we can hop a plane and be just about anywhere in the world. And it makes it so easy having that asset right in our backyards to be able to stay in close contact with our customers. So the Shenandoah Valley for us was a bit more of an organic investment, but it continues to thrive, and we are certainly pleased to be a part of that growth.
Thank you, Keith. And folks, I did not script what he just said for teeing up Greg Campbell with the airport, but thank you greatly, because that gives me a wonderful opportunity to turn it over to Greg, because he has educated us on what is going on in the commercial airline industry right now and the opportunity that we have with this. So Greg, I'm going to allow you to articulate this far better than I could.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. And InterChange is a perfect example, and what Keith just mentioned of the advantage this region has in terms of air service. The fact that the airport is strategically located in the central Shenandoah Valley, with really exceptional service by our partners at United, it really opens up our market. And you know, our business travelers are really they really appreciate the benefits of being able to fly local. They can arrive at the airport 30, 45 minutes before departure, and in less than a half hour, about a 20-minute flight up to Dulles, or an hour and a half out to Chicago, literally one-stop connection to the world. And that has proven very beneficial for this region. It's been really well received. Last year, for 2019, we posted a 44% increase in passenger traffic. The first quarter of 2020 was off to a similar start. It's been very well received. There's also, you should know about, a local initiative, a regional air service task force has been formed to help foster air service and build passenger traffic and hopefully translate that into additional service. It's hosted by James Madison University. But we have partners involved on the task force, including SVP and many of the people on this meeting today that are involved in those efforts. Those efforts have been very fruitful. I mentioned the increase in passenger traffic, and that translates directly into our ability to grow the service, which we did this past year with the success that we had. United and their partner SkyWest added additional frequency up to Washington Dulles. The great thing about the service pattern at SHD is that we can offer that dual hub connectivity. Both of those hub airports by United serve complementary but very different areas of the globe, and Dulles does a really good job of feeding the East Coast of the U.S. and some domestic destinations, particularly in Europe, whereas Chicago does the central part of the U.S., the West Coast, and some other international areas such as Asia very well. So it's a very complementary service pattern. In the past few months, what we've seen with the airlines, we've been able to maintain much of our service, but the airlines have really changed their operating model a little bit in light of current circumstances, and the hubs have become even more regionally focused with less long haul flights. So with the Valley having access to 2 hubs, that makes sure that we have good access to most regions of the country and even eventually back to the rest of the world as the airlines continue to focus those hubs on a regional basis. We feel like that's an advantage for us going forward, that the airport will be able to offer what a very similar level of service, in some ways parity with what folks may experience in larger cities, in the fact that we have that dual hub capability within the United Airlines system, not just service to one hub, which may, for the next few months or next year or so, limit your options to those within that region, but having access to 2 different hubs in 2 different regions really opens up a whole lot more for our community. So we're excited about possible growth in the future, and it's been very well received by our passengers here locally. Just having that close-in access to be able to get out and get back into the Valley whenever they need to.
Thank you, Greg. And Greg didn't mention one of the greatest assets, and I make light of this, but it does come up. You have free parking at the airport.
Not only is it free, but that also facilitates when you get home, getting out of the airport environment. You're not sitting in line waiting to feed a ticket into a meter or something like that. So it's something our passengers are very spoiled about, is their ability to breeze in and out of here and get on their way.
Thanks, Greg. Keith brought it up. Charlene brought it up. The last topic I want to cover is talking about the workforce. Anybody who hears me talk gets tired of hearing me say this, but workforce is driving our economy, and it's still continuing to do so during this pandemic. For the consultants, I want you to know, because our largest private sector employment base in our region is manufacturing, which makes us somewhat rare. We are a relatively rural region in aggregate, yet we're one of the few rural regions in the U.S. that's actually growing in population, which is particularly important to us. And so I would like the response, reflections, your thoughts from our panel on the workforce here and the assets that we're trying to put in place to continue both the growth and the training. And now with the pandemic, how do we transition some of these people that have been in the hospitality side more toward, career-oriented pathways? And I'll defer to you, to either of you, or all of you. Charlene, why don't you take it?
As the HR manager, I guess that makes sense.
Yes.
What I have found in the Shenandoah Valley that stands out in my mind, working here in the last few years, and also being able to compare it to other markets, is there's a quality to our workforce that is not always found in other markets. Mercury, yes, we're manufacturing. We have a variety of levels of positions. We can take somebody with very little experience in manufacturing and train and grow them. And then, of course, we have other positions that do require more experience. What we've done in the last few years at Mercury to build the kind of culture that we believe leads to success as a business, and it appears we're on the right path with some of the achievements we're making. And of course, that's something that you always continue to work at. It's never perfect, but we are pleased with the results. And what we're seeing is we hire for character, and we hire for heart and work ethic, versatility, and of course those raw skills are important. And I find that in a rural setting, people who have grown up or been involved with some of the activities that might be a part of just growing up in a more rural setting or working in businesses that are in this setting, there does seem to be a work ethic and a versatility and a kind of a commitment and heart and character that does, in my opinion, make the Valley stand out. And I'm not saying that can't be found in other areas. It can be, and it is, but I have found that to be more prominent in this Valley. And that has been an advantage for Mercury, especially once we started shifting our attention to those qualities and recruiting for that skill set. And then, of course, trainable, somebody that's trainable and wants to invest in a career and can see a career path. So we do, as a company, we do try to present a career path. Some people, they just want to be a machine operator, or they want to be a forklift operator, and that's awesome. You know, we need those, we need them too. And then others do see that bigger picture, can see where they can grow and build a career. Tara is an excellent example of that. She's been with the company for 10 years. She's had a very impressive growth path with the company, and is now transportation manager. And she didn't start out that way. So it is possible. And I think that to answer your question about the pandemic, you know, within a matter of weeks, we went from a very, very limited labor market, very low unemployment. Mercury and other manufacturers were competing for a lot of the same labor. I do want to say that of all the areas that I've worked in, I am the most impressed with the efforts, the collaborative efforts, and this was mentioned a moment ago, the collaborative efforts in the Shenandoah Valley. Conversations like this, the number of people, Jenna French and colleagues of hers who have stayed in touch and reached out and asked us questions and been involved and wanting to know what do we need to be successful, wanting to know what kind of skill sets we're looking for, what kind of training is missing or needs to be focused on. That has stood out to me as an HR professional, and I've not worked in any market that has had such a concerted and professional effort to partner with the businesses and partner with each other and actually take action on the feedback that we give. So I think that's important to point out. It's no accident that the Valley has made the strides that it has. I can see the effort and the collaboration to make that possible. As a business, that has benefited us. And within a matter of a few weeks, we went from fighting with other, not fighting, but competing with other manufacturers and businesses for very similar skill sets. And now we have the pick of the pick of the crop. So now we're able to be a little more selective because we do have multiple candidates, and we can drill down and get the qualities I was talking about and get some experience as well. So I'm not complaining about that. It's a nice position to be in. But it's not always the case. And when it hasn't been, we've still found very quality people.
Hey, Charlene, we have a question for you. Can you explain how the recent COVID pandemic has impacted your workforce, and how has it impacted other employers that you're aware of? And maybe some of the other companies too could chime in on that, how COVID has impacted your workforce.
This has been, none of us have gone through this before. And so we are learning along the way, like most businesses are. In the beginning, I did have concerns about how it was going to impact us. How we have chosen to manage it internally has helped a great deal in shaping people's perceptions and easing their fears. We really, really put a lot of effort into the communication around what the company is doing to keep our employees safe, also what the employees' responsibilities are in that partnership. The company can't do it all. And we have seen, especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks, a shaping from fear and trepidation to confidence and people finding their footing and gaining confidence in the company and gaining confidence in what we all can do to work together to fight COVID and to mitigate the effects of it and keep it out of our workforce. So in a short period of time, to answer your question, it kind of went from one end of it to one end of the paradigm to the other. And I can say that now I'm hearing feedback from employees saying that they feel safest at home, and the second place they feel the safest is at work. And they feel the least safe at a grocery store or, going shopping or a drugstore or a gas station. And really that's not about those businesses. It's just about being out in public and other locations. So that we take those cues and we continue to build on them. And we also ask our employees constantly, here's what we're doing. What else can we do? And when they're involved in that conversation, they feel like it's happening with them and not at them or to them. And we've gotten some very good ideas from them. We're implementing something new just this week because of a suggestion that an employee has had. So that's been our experience, and we're modeling that across our other companies as well. And we'll continue to evolve that. It's not perfect, but we have to continue to ask and listen and respond.
That was great. Thank you for that explanation. Can I ask the InterChange guys, what have you guys done different during this pandemic?
Well, I think our experience, our reaction would be very similar to what Mercury had when this first started. There was that sort of sense of fear, or that this is this wave that's coming that we need to react to, and we very quickly put regular communications together. Our senior leadership was meeting daily for several weeks, getting a lot of communication out to our employees, getting a lot of procedures and protocols in place. Again, being part of that, well, we'll call it essential food chain, our employees' health and well-being was paramount during this entire time. Of course, our heart is with them first, and then being able to continue our operations and keep them going. And I'm sure in the toilet paper industry as well, that was a critical thing early on. But again, we've talked a lot here about going from that crisis to this sort of ongoing, and Devin, the word is missing me right now, or I'm lost. Go ahead. Chronic. Thank you. This crisis to chronic mode where we have, an ongoing concern. We're making sure that everyone is continuing to keep this front and center while beginning to adjust to this new, hopefully shorter term way of doing business. But again, I think we've weathered this very well. I think even as we come out of this, I've talked to a number of people about the fact that we are in an essential business. And as we look to recruit moving down the road, when we look to maintain employees down the road, understanding that we just came through a very bad time, but our operations continued. We were not disrupted. And a number of in the food industry, that's the story we have to tell. Where other industries, where we know hospitality took a hit and some other things, this food and beverage industry, we managed to plow on and continue to hire, continue to employ, and continue to prosper during a very, very difficult time.
Great. I got another question for the food and beverage guys. What services are you seeing growing the most actively in the food and beverage sector? Keith, can you take this one? Put you on the spot?
Put me on the spot.
I did.
Yeah. It's a great question. What sectors do we see growing as a direct result of the pandemic, or by
not necessarily, just in general in the food and beverage sector?
Yeah. So it seems that we do a lot of pallet in, pallet out in our storage, but the cold side of our business is absolutely growing exponentially. Most everybody has probably heard about the investment that the Port of Virginia has made with deepening and widening their channels, and that push for being one of the largest cold storage networks on the East Coast, falls right in line with our most recent build, which was the construction of another 230,000 square feet of cold storage right here at our home office in Harrisonburg, Mount Crawford. That was phase 1, and we are well in the midst of phase 2, which will be, I think, another 180,000 square feet of cold storage that is going to be available for this region essentially. But in addition to just the cold, there's the value added side, those other bits and pieces of business that accompany our cold storage, whether it's repack or blast freezing or some of the other value added services, not just storage and transportation, but customers more and more are looking to focus their attention on production, maximizing what their staff is able to get out the door, and turning a lot of that other, whether it's repackaging or repalletizing or creating variety packs or even the blast and some of the other essential components of the value-added services, they're sort of pushing those down the line, and it's creating opportunities for folks like us to assist them and grow with them.
Awesome. Very good. Speaking of growth, can you explain or elaborate a little bit more on some of the various phases of the cold storage? I understand there's rail that's going to be incorporated in that as well.
Yeah, Chris, maybe you'd be better at speaking on this.
Right. We did put up 230,000 square feet. We're adding another 180,000 square feet. And with that, we talked a little bit earlier, and there was a nice graphic about where we sit relative to the East Coast and central mid-Atlantic and the road networks that allow us to service so much of the eastern portion of the United States quickly. We talked about the access to the ports and how convenient both the Virginia Inland Port and the Port of Virginia, the ocean terminals, are. We talked about the airport here and its excellent service. The thing we didn't talk about yet was the fact that we do have a short line railroad that sort of splits sort of up the middle of our region that has access to both Norfolk Southern and CSX, the two Class 1 railroads in the area. We're fortunate that our cold storage property sits along that, and we are, even as we speak, starting construction on a rail spur that will access not only our cold storage building, but additional properties around that cold storage. So that's the rail story. We're excited about that, and it allows access to domestic rail that will stretch, coast to coast, and I would assume, across the breadth of North America.
Awesome. That's great. And maybe you guys could chime in again, just kind of touch on your relationship, maybe in Norfolk Southern and how it relates to the port, and again, maybe touch on y'all's expansion there on the East Coast.
Well, as far as our relationship with the Class 1s, we're just, we're getting started on those. They are watching what we're doing very closely. Very excited. I was talking with them even this morning. Excited about the opportunities and the potential they have to bring business into this region using that rail. Clearly the Norfolk Southern has been very active in that transiting containers from Norfolk up to the Virginia Inland Port. That's been their active partner since the 80s. These things we're gaining momentum in that area.
That's great. Laura, you guys got anything you'd like to talk about with your expansion at the port? And Russ?
Sure. So at our deep water terminals, Russ talked about it a little bit, but those terminals connect directly to the inland facility in Front Royal. Our Norfolk Southern terminal, we're undergoing a renovation of that facility. So the south side of that terminal, it will be complete hopefully within the year. And it's going from a traditional style terminal to a semi-automated facility. So I know some of y'all have been to our terminal across the water, Virginia International Gateway. That is our Gold Star terminal. It is semi-automated, and we just completed last summer phase 2 of that expansion. So as he said, we increased the capacity within the harbor about 1 million containers. We are dredging as well. That has begun to 55 feet. And then what's important about that dredge is we're also going wider in the harbor. So we're going from 1,000 feet to about 1,400 feet, and that allows for these ultra large vessels to pass each other at one time. So pretty exciting stuff, and you won't see that anywhere else really on the East Coast. I was just down in North Carolina near Wilmington, and it's interesting to see that they have vessels coming in all the time, but they're not nearly as big as the ones in Virginia. And it was just a kind of a pride moment for me working for the Port of Virginia and knowing that we have in Virginia the capability to handle these very large vessels coming in to the East Coast. That directly connects to the Shenandoah Valley because the Port of Virginia really wants to increase our rail volume. So that's what we're focused on here in the near term, is really increasing that rail volume because we have the capacity at our terminals in Hampton Roads to handle the cargo. We just need to get it out into Virginia and get it out into the Chicago, the Ohio, the Northeast markets. So we're really excited to partner with Norfolk Southern and CSX. We have some additional rail opportunities that we want to look at across the state. So we're open to different projects as well.
Great.
Thanks, Laura.
Hey, Russ, could you talk a little bit about the expansion of the cold storage? Obviously, Chris and Keith just recently talked about it, but you had mentioned there's an expansion of cold storage in the port as well.
Well, we've had expansion of reefer handling capacity as far as plugs to handle the refrigerated containers. And the business we've seen around that is both chilled, temperature controlled, and frozen. On the import side, we do see the frozen seafood and things like that, but also vegetables, fruit, pharmaceuticals, absolutely, and also grocery stores. So we're seeing so much containerized refrigerated businesses going to the expansions of the Lidls and the Aldis and the other grocery store chains that are spreading throughout Virginia and the East Coast for that matter. And as always, we've handled the frozen products on the export side, being the poultry out of the valley, certainly pork and beef exports as well. We've had refrigerated capabilities on the inland port train and the Richmond, and now with the Richmond barge as well. And going forward, we're just seeing more and more of a demand for that as well. And so we are very active in trying to put the users together with developers and handlers like InterChange and just making the whole thing work. But that's one area that we see even increased demand, we believe, coming out of the pandemic as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Russ. Greg, we have a question for you. Can you discuss relationships that you have with the local corporate businesses and your international services you can provide for corporate?
This is Greg, right?
Yeah, Greg. Yep. Greg Campbell.
So on the corporate side, yes, we operate a really fantastic facility on the corporate side of the house. The Airport Commission actually operates that themselves. And the reason we do that are for two primary reasons. One is we feel strongly that our role in facilitating business and industry in and out of the valley is something we need to take very seriously, and we need to make sure that the folks coming through that side of the house are handled in an exceptional way. So our team does that. We have an award-winning FBO that's actually operated by the Airport Commission, state-of-the-art facilities, conference facilities, concierge level service. And it's really the biggest part of our operation in terms of operations, makes up about 80% of our daily operations is activity that happens on that side of the house. There are a lot of companies in the footprint with airplanes or fleets of airplanes. We see them often, some of them several times a week. Over the last few months, that's been very critical. A lot of supply chain, food and beverage folks, some of those involved in logistics and transportation have leaned heavily on that. And we're a 24/7 operation. So, sometimes when they've needed to come and go, was related to something that maybe needed to be taken care of on short notice in one of their facilities. And we've been able to facilitate that, get them in, get them out. And we maintain very close contact on a regular basis with our frequent users. to make sure that we're meeting their needs. But by operating that ourselves, we do it. And then the second reason we do it is we operate the fuel concession, which is a good revenue source for the airport, helps keep overall cost structures at the airport low, which our air carrier benefits from, and helps us encourage them to grow as the costs to operate here are low.
All right, Jay, that's all the questions that I see on the chat.
Thank you, Travis.
Sure.
We're winding down on time. We're conscientious of everybody's time. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to verbally ask any of us any questions if you'd like. And if we don't get any more, I would especially like to thank our panelists. I would like to thank our guests who have participated. We've enjoyed this. This was our first effort along this lines. We look forward to doing this again. And as a matter of fact, we are going to plan a virtual, well, we are in the planning of a virtual fan tour. For you consultants who have to endure windshield time, we promise you we're going to minimize that. The date for this is June 30th. And that is all I have. Does anyone have anything else? And if not, we appreciate everybody participating, and we'll end this a few minutes early. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you.